Well, hello there, YouTube. It's been a while. Forgive me. I had this big long vacation thing I had to do, and then Christmas and all that shit. But alas, I'm back with another video to entertain everyone. Today's video will be out of character, so no satirical feminist. Sorry if that's what you like. But today we're going to do a video on one of my favorite topics, and that's abortion. But we're not just going to talk about abortion. We're going to do one of those fun response videos. And who am I going to take on? Steven Crowder. So, with that being said, roll the title. So the Medspeds here. If you're aware of who the Medspeds is, you're probably aware of who Steven Crowder is. He is a conservative YouTuber who is liked by the skeptic community for some reason because he does anti-SJW content. You know, which is okay, I guess. Broken clock, right? But for the most part, he's shit. Especially on the topic of abortion, because he's pro-life. So what I'm going to do today is tackle his series is called Change My Mind. Yeah, because he's so open to having his mind changed. Yes, the professional commentator who has all of his arguments ready to go. He's articulate, he's well-spoken, he knows his shit, and he's just getting random passerbyers to debate with. He's totally doing that because he wants his mind changed, not because he wants to make his opposition look stupid, right? That's not what's going on. He's totally sincere. Well, let's start off with this just to get it out of the way. This is what Steven has to say about people who are, I guess, liberal. Ooh.
One thing you'll notice with Change My Mind, anytime someone comes up who's really hardcore against our viewpoint, they have invariably set up some kind of a victim status.
Almost always.
Trans disabled, I'm literally autistic.
Literally autistic.
In this case, someone who needed an abortion out of a medical necessity. They use it because when they feel their argument is on shaky ground or their position, they revert back to it, you'll see.
I am not a victim. I do not want to share any sad stories of women who are trying to conceive and their fetuses had these debilitating, terrible, life-threatening illnesses and they get to slowly watch it wither away. I'm not here to play the sympathy card. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not trans, I'm not disabled. I'm not going to use any of those wham-ass stories. I've never even had an abortion. I'm here to argue a point. Because this woman didn't do a good job illustrating the pro-choice argument. I mean, duh. Because if she did, he wouldn't have posted this video.
And then my understanding is that happens either after 6 or 7 months of the pregnancy, when the baby, you know, in terms of when it's a life, when it is viable or outside of, you know, I guess, or within, you know, science or an incubator, but
with that being said, let's just go ahead and jump into the actual arguments.
So when would it be okay, I guess, to put limitations, let's say, on abortion?
limitations.
When is it okay? Because we've acknowledged viability is not consistent, but you're okay with it anyway. You're the only one who's valuing the rights of one being over another being, the mother over a child, because you're the one who's actually proactively terminating a life, and you're okay with that. I'm simply saying no one has the right to terminate another life, just like you don't have, it's the non-aggression principle. You don't have the right to hurt me, I don't have the right to hurt you. I'm saying that person doesn't have the right to hurt that baby. You're saying it does. So you're saying her rights supersede that of the other life living, growing inside of her. So at what point is that okay or not okay, I guess, is where it comes down.
It becomes okay at any point in the pregnancy, unless of course you can go into the hospital and be induced and the fetus were to survive and become a baby, which, you know, just to clarify, a baby is a human being post-birth. Pre-birth, it's a fetus. Let's get that out the way. Let's use words. Let's use the actual definitions of words. The baby gets rights when it's born, when it is no longer dependent on another human being to sustain life. So like I said, if you can induce at 7 months and the fetus becomes a baby and survives and goes to the adoption system or the foster care system, whatever, I'm fine with that. That's great. But if it doesn't survive, whatever, it doesn't matter. There, I answered your question and I didn't stutter at all. Some might say, oh, that's so insensitive. A fully formed fetus, it's viable, it's practically conscious, it looks like a baby. It looks like a baby. But here's the thing about abortion. The argument is not about whether it's a life or whether the life of the fetus is more important than the mother. The pro-choice stance revolves around the concept of bodily autonomy, meaning you have the right to your own body. The government or fundamentalist Christians or right-wing atheists who are pro-life for some reason, they don't have the right to tell you you have to use your uterus to house this fetus for 9 months because I value that fetus. No, that's not how rights work, at least not since Roe versus Wade. We don't have to keep other people alive. Just like we don't have to donate a kidney to someone. It doesn't matter if that person is going to die within 20 minutes and you're the only person in the hospital that has that organ that they need. No one can force you to. And by not giving them your organ and they happen to die, that's not murder. It's not. Because bodily autonomy. It is not your responsibility to use your body parts to sustain other people's lives. Fetus, adult, doesn't matter. That's the argument. Hands down. Really, I can end the video here, but let's go on more, because why the fuck not, right? So Stephen and this random woman go on, and at some point Stephen says this.
No, you act as though I'm anti-choice. That's not true.
Which is startling because being against abortion, saying that it should be illegal to terminate a pregnancy, is being against the choice of terminating the pregnancy. Yes, you are anti-choice. Then he gets into the whole murder thing. And of course, like he said, this is on his channel. She looks stupid because she can't define murder.
Now, what is murder? It's killing with intent. Right? So we agree on murder. So if that's a life, how is abortion not murder?
So let me define murder for you. Murder, according to the dictionary, is the unlawful killing of one human being by another. Is abortion murder? No, because it's not unlawful. Therefore, it's not murder. I'll give it to you, Stephen. Sure, it's killing, but it's not murder. Murder is a legal term, and if it's legal, it's not unlawful, therefore it's not murder. Words have definitions. Sorry. It doesn't fit your little narrative, but it is what it is. So then Stephen pulls up the fetal development chart.
So let's look at the fetal development. Where is it okay for you? What point is it okay to kill?
This is an emotional tactic to persuade the person that he's arguing with to have sympathy towards the later stages of development because the fetus starts to resemble a baby more and more. We've determined already that it doesn't matter at what point in the pregnancy, bodily autonomy is bodily autonomy. But it's strange that he wants to focus on this topic so much because he brings up something else later, which I find kind of ironic, considering the fact that he keeps bringing up this 9-month abortion, which is as follows.
Let's say we give you that. Let's say rape, incest, right, the less than 0.5% of abortions. Let's say we give you this.
Okay.
So then, let's get that off the table, give it to you. What about the vast majority of abortions, which we both know are committed because of convenience?
So he doesn't want to talk about rape or incest because those are statistical anomalies, yet he brings up abortions at 9 months about 15 times. I mean, seriously, if I had $1 for every time he brought up the 9-month pregnancy thing, I probably could pay my water bill, which would be nice. Somebody can give me that money. I would love to have my water bill paid, but we're not going to talk about me. Let's go back to this. So let's talk about the statistical anomaly of late-term abortions. Okay. According to some research I did, and I'll pop that up in the corner right there, 1.3% of abortions are performed in the last trimester. 1.3. That's a small percentage. Kind of like the percentage of abortions performed due to rape or incest. Now, let's go a little bit further. Why are abortions performed that late in the pregnancy? You think that women just, get pregnant and go 8 months throwing up, mood swings, indigestion, swollen feet, pissing all the time, gestational diabetes maybe, all sorts of shit. The list goes on. Look it up. You think they just go through that strolling through life and then at 8 months they're just like, you know what? Never mind. I'm gonna kill it. You think that's what happens? Because it's not. That's not what fucking happens. I mean, I'm sure it has happened. There's probably a few masochistic women out there that are totally into that. And, I mean, as morally objectable as I may find that to be, still, ultimately, it goes back to bodily autonomy, and she has the right to do that. But that is such a small minority. Most women have abortions in the late terms of their pregnancy due to complications that occur. Other reasons include lack of resources, income problems, transportation problems. They're in abusive relationships and it's hard to get to the abortion clinic. They're unaware that they're pregnant thanks to lack of sex education. There's lots of reasons, but most of them aren't elective and convenience, like he wants to put it. What the fuck kind of convenience is that? Like I said, being pregnant for 8 months is not convenient, dumbass.
Where does life begin? Because if we don't know entirely, of course, I would say we both agree you have to err on the side of allowing the possibility that that's a life. So where does life begin? I think it's the most important question. We can't move on from that conversation to what happens after birth if we don't agree where life begins.
The when does life begin argument. Oh, they love this one. When does life begin? When does life begin? Okay, I'll give it to you. Conception, that's a huge step in the process of human development because the egg and the sperm can't really do much on their own without one another. So fine, life begins at conception, even though the sperm and the egg are indeed alive beforehand. But like I said, they need one another, so I'll give it to you. But here's the thing. You really didn't get me. Because it doesn't fucking matter when life begins. Since when is all human life valid? I don't know. How do you feel about gun control? How do you feel about wars? What about the death penalty? Do you support the people in Black Lives Matter? If your answer is the right position, not as in the correct, the right wing position, sounds like you're pretty fine with the killing of human life. It has to suit your narrative. Did those humans do things that society doesn't like, that doesn't align with your morality, such as stealing cigarettes and running away from the cops, or being in a country that has, problems with the U.S.? How would you feel about our good old buddy Trump bombing Syria? What about those fetuses that were killed? Was that okay? But I know, I'm changing the subject. You also bring that up with this.
And now she's on to supporting the baby after it's born. In other words, free stuff, free healthcare, free college. This is sort of the bumper sticker logic that we move to, and it's important to bring them back to the point.
If you're really pro-life, then
right, if you're really pro-life,
X, Y, and Z.
Free stuff.
But the reason that's brought up is because it's a totally valid thing. You bring up that millions of abortions are performed a year. Okay. What if those abortions aren't performed? What the fuck are we supposed to do with all those extra people? Most people who have abortions either because they don't want children, which leads to neglect and abuse leads to psychological problems, crime, which would make society worse as a whole later on. I mean, watch Freakonomics, it kind of explains it. But also, a lot of people have abortions because they cannot afford to have children. So, if we make abortion not an option, and all these millions of aborted fetuses become babies, and you don't support things like Medicaid, WIC, funding education, housing vouchers, what the fuck are these people supposed to do? Starve on the streets? Not very pro-life. See, that's the problem with you fucking right-wingers. If you were at least consistent, I wouldn't have an issue, or I wouldn't have as much of an issue with your view on politics. You want to sit there and scream and scream and scream at pregnant women to keep this fetus regardless to whatever shitty situation they may be in, but the second they're born, who gives a shit? You shouldn't have had sex. It's too late. They're already pregnant. Let them fucking nip it in the bud before it can feel pain. I get it, you believe in God, but this is a country that has the separation of church and state. Your God doesn't dictate what we do. Like I said, it goes back to bodily autonomy. If we don't want to carry a pregnancy to term, we don't have to. And I promise you, Stephen, all these second and third term abortions would be decreasing if we had easier access to abortions. And that's y'all fault. Y'all are the ones making us jump through loops, making us having to drive 4 or 5 hours because they shut down the clinics because of bullshit technicalities, making people go through counseling that they don't necessarily need, making them go through waiting periods 72 hours before you can make that final decision. It's ridiculous. And it all contributes to why people are having abortions later, like I said. And then at some point in the video, this happens.
It'd be like saying you're being forced, for example, to take care of your child because the law says that you have to feed that child, even though it's completely non-viable without your intervention.
He actually makes being forced to carry a pregnancy to term comparable to being forced to take care of a child that you chose to actually give birth to and keep the custody of. Which is... what? First of all, they are viable, living, breathing, thinking, feeling people at that point. Second of all, if you didn't want to have the child, you could have either A, had the abortion, or B, given up the child when it was born. You can't just go, at 6, I don't want the kid anymore. Which, I mean, technically you can. You just have to pay child support. And then if you drop them off somewhere, if it's early enough, there are safe haven laws which pretty much say that's A-okay. So that's not a good analogy, Stephen. That's a fucking horrible one. But then he finishes with this.
To showcase the truth that you know to be self-evident to the audience. And the questioning, the Socratic method, the letting the questions play out, letting them answer their own questions, it only works if it's an argument from truth.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's what's important to me is in watching this and in conducting this, I'm trying to find out if my argument, if my position is rational, and if my opponent's is rational. And in this case, as as bleak as it seems, the answer was pretty clear to me.
It sounds really good. He doesn't actually fucking mean it. But, I mean, I have to give him some props because a lot of people on the left don't even want to have discussions. And they just want their own little echo chambers and just scream buzzwords at everyone. Even though I feel that he isn't open to having his mind changed at all. I mean, he didn't come out of that conversation even slightly more pro-choice. So, I guess with that being said, your video didn't change my mind either. I'm just as pro-choice as I was before. At 8 weeks or 38. If I don't want to keep someone else alive, I don't have to. If we make abortion illegal, we give corpses more rights than we do pregnant women. That's right. Bodily autonomy extends to corpses. Interesting, huh? A corpse is more important than a pregnant woman. A person who is dying and that needs a kidney is less important than a cluster of cells to some people. We all know, deep down, that most pro-lifers really just don't like sex. That's all this is about. Now, Stephen didn't get into this too much, but we know that a lot of this is just right-wingers, just bothered by the idea that a heterosexual couple would dare fuck for pleasure. And also child-free people apparently piss people off for some reason. Especially when your imaginary sky people tell you that to, be fruitful and multiply. That doesn't work very well when people choose not to reproduce. But do we really need 1 million more people?
But what if that saves billions of lives? What if that saves hundreds and hundreds of millions of lives?
We live on a planet of finite resources. Climate change. I mean, I live in Louisiana, and they're relocating people because certain parts of the land are just sinking. We don't need more people. What do I say when I find out millions of fetuses are being aborted? I say good. The less people, the better. And that's just my super edgy, controversial opinion. My name is the Medspeds. If you agree with me and you like this video, you can subscribe. You can give me money because I like money. You should do the like thing, I guess. But yeah, fuck Steven Crowder. Oh well, fuck him on this topic. Like I said, his SJW shit's alright, but like I said, broken clock. Anyways, I'm out.